Hello, Internet! My name is Catherine Barsonistas, and you are watching the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis, a cooking show where I make a recipe inspired by various tabletop role-playing games, such as Dungeons & Dragons, as in last week maybe Shadowrun, Pathfinder, and, whatever I happen to find that's in the tabletop role-playing game sphere. Today, we are going back to Dungeons & Dragons. Yes, episode 2 of Season 3. We're going back to our, I guess, figurative bread and butter when it comes to tabletop role-playing games. And we're going back to, once again, Volo's Guides. And if you've never heard of the Volo's Guides, Volo is a famous bard from the Forgotten Realms campaign, but Forgotten Realms campaign setting, written by Ed Greenwood. During the, I want to say the mid-90s, Dungeons & Dragons released a bunch of campaign supplements, and they were all written, supposedly, by this bard Volo as kind of a dining and traveler's guide to various realms within Forgotten Realms campaign, within Faerun, and that's about as far as they got. I mostly have done recipes from Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast, but today I am actually going to the city of Waterdeep, a bit further south along the Sword Coast, which operates a little bit like a city-state. And from what I've read, Ed Greenwood, the author behind the Forgotten Realms series, based the city of Waterdeep very much on the city of Toronto, around where he is located. So you basically kind of have a trade hub around the Great Lakes region. This recipe comes from a specific tavern within Waterdeep called Felzoun's Folly, and I'm just going to go ahead and read out a bit of that source book here, just so you can kind of get an idea. It's very short, so I hope you bear that in mind and be patient as I read this. Felzoun's Folly, this many-windowed tavern is a noisy, crowded, casual place where many merchants and shoppers grab a drink, a quick tankard, and a bite. Its exterior presents an awning, festooned three-story face in the northwestern corner, where the mouth of the river square opens into Salabar Street. A bite here means a sausage roll or a chicken and cheese pasty, augmented by fresh asparagus with melted butter, when in season, or fresh whole oysters. Those with strong stomachs eat oysters raw here by tradition. The standard fare costs 4 silver pieces each, a real bargain. The seasonal delicacies are 6 silver pieces a plate. There's little variety in drink here. Ale is 1 silver piece a tankard, stout is 2 silver pieces, and wine and czar are both 4 silver pieces a tall glass. There are usually 6 white wines to be had, including the sweet Neverwinter Nectar and 3 reds. I've heard rumors that stolen goods can be fenced here, but I could learn nothing more. In all the din and confusion, I suspect wholesale wars could be fought here, and no one would be the wiser. The proprietor is Felzoun Thar. The bristle-bearded, fearless dwarven host is always bustling busily about the folly. So that's the quick description of Felzoun's Folly, the tavern within Waterdeep. Today we are going to be making that chicken and cheese pasty, but we're going to be making a little bit more than just, chicken and cheese, because, come on guys, if you just wanted to be chicken and cheese, you would just buy a Hot Pocket. And you're not here to just buy Hot Pockets. You're here to make something a little bit more fitting to the actual setting that you're going to have your gamers play in. So I am going back to my what I like to do a lot when it comes to pasties is make a hot water crust, because my hands do not work well with regular standard pie crust, especially when it comes to shaping it. Hot water crust is not only easy, it is cheap to make, and also you can include other fun things within the crust. In this case, I'm going to be putting in some chives and fresh rosemary into the crust as well as our filling. I'm going to be sauteing some chicken up with butter, of course, and as well as fresh apple. Well, technically this isn't really all that fresh, it's kind of old, but apples last almost forever. And also cooking in, as a nod to the 6 white wines that we have listed in Felzoun's, we're going to be cooking it in some dry vermouth as well. So, I've explained what the heck I'm making. It's time to get cooking. So, first thing, it's all the prep work. You're going to be needing a very sharp chef's knife, as well as a cheese grater, and a stick of rosemary that's now going to be decorative in my cauldron, because it fell on the floor. I'm not putting that into my food. And, yeah, let's go ahead and get chopping. You're going to need about 1/4 cup of fresh chopped rosemary. I got a little 1/4 cup here to measure. Just going to strip that rosemary there. I'm basically going in order of how contaminated I want this cutting board to be, because I really, really do not want to have to wash it in between. Don't worry, I will be using another cutting board later on to cut said pasties in half for plating, but since I don't really need to do that yet, I'm just using this chopping board here with a little bit of a lip around the edge, so it doesn't spill chicken juices all over my nice bamboo prep board when I start chopping that. But first, rosemary. And what I normally do, and just to give you a quick rundown for those who are just joining us, how to properly hold a chef's knife. First, you take the index finger of your dominant hand, in my case it is my right, put it up here against the blade, right here, the blade where it meets with the handle. Put your thumb there, and then comfortably adjust your fingers, including your pointer finger, as you can see, so it firmly, but not tightly, holds the knife. I mean, basically what you want is to, when I do this, all you have to do is just give that pinch a quick squeeze to keep your knife from slipping. As opposed to if you're doing something like this, well, that didn't take any strength whatsoever, or anything like that. Oh yeah. Knife is going to slip. So, now that I've got that, I'm just going to balance my hand on top of the blade here to keep it steady, and do a quick chop, using the back of my knife to scrape back and forth so I don't mess up how sharp this edge is, and go back and continue to chop. Yeah, I always cringe whenever I see cooking videos where people scrape their cutting board with the sharp edge of their knife. Because, see, are you cooking a Christmas tree? No, Jelly Melly, I am not cooking a Christmas tree. I am cooking cheese and chicken hand pies with apple, rosemary, and chives, and this is rosemary. So yes, it does look a little bit like a Christmas tree. This is actually from the ginormous rosemary bush I have in my front yard. I probably am chopping this a little too fine, actually. Yeah, so that's also why the rosemary stalks I have look a little nothing like the stuff that you find in the grocery store. Because I am terrible, absolutely terrible at pruning my garden plants when they're supposed to be. I'm getting better about it, but it's also in the middle of winter, so... Alright. Let's get rid of that because it fell on the floor. Just giving that a quick chop. Like I said, I kind of chopped it a little too fine to begin with, but that's fine. It's not really going to affect the quality of things, it's just going to make it a little more difficult to get off the cutting board, as you can well see. But I want about 1/4 cup of rosemary in there, so I will just keep chopping until I get the amount that I need. Because this is going to be going both in the filling as well as in the crust, and that's also what I like about a hot water crust, is that the taste of the herbs really come out when you bake it. Because since you use boiling hot water to make the crust, it first kind of penetrates those cell walls on fresh herbs like rosemary, or even dried herbs for that matter. It's really good about rehydrating dried herbs to kind of release those volatile oils into the dough before you actually bake it. So it infuses that herbal flavor directly into the dough, and then you bake it, and it's so good. I'm really looking forward to see how these turn out. But yeah, another good example, if you go to my blog, thegluttonousgeek.com, I've got a couple recipes involving a hot water crust, one of which is based off of Dragon Age, and it's Dragon Age 2, not Dragon Age 2, yeah, Dragon Age 2. It's pretty ridiculous. It's based off of when the wizard Anders shares some fish pie with his pet cat, Sir Pounce-a-lot. So I made hand pies that you can share with your cat. I know, it's ridiculous. It was part of my friends in Fandom Foodies. We're this group of geeky food bloggers, and until we got just over the top busy, we used to do themed recipe link ups. Like we would pick a theme to host that particular month, and then everyone would make a recipe based off that franchise. It all started when we started making recipes based off of Brian Jacques' Redwall series, which, coincidentally enough, when I'm talking about it, the Redwall series is going to be getting a Netflix treatment soon and making animated features, and the director for it, the showrunners for it, did Over the Garden Wall, that you might remember from Cartoon Network. So I am super excited about that coming out, and oh no, that means I just need to come up with some more Redwall recipes. So, but yeah, we started doing that years ago. And so that's when I made that pie, because we had one of our months, we called it Nyanuary, and Nyan means cat in Japan. We had a lot of anime fan bloggers. So while everyone else had the Miyazaki covered, I'm like, okay, what else do I know that has fictional cats in it? And I'm like, Dragon Age, there you go. Crazy cat man after my own heart. Even though in Dragon Age Awakening, which is the expansion to Dragon Age Origins, well, yes, Anders he's a little bit of a scoundrel. He's not. He doesn't become the absolute tool that he becomes in Dragon Age 2. I mean, it's understandable that he does, and I have to say, I am very impressed with how the writers of Dragon Age 2 kind of have a theme regarding toxic relationships and institutions. So at some point I will definitely write an article about what Dragon Age 2 taught me about toxic boyfriends or something. I'll figure it out. Okay, so there's my 1/4 cup of fresh chopped rosemary. Now I'm going to be chopping up about a 1/4 cup of fresh chives. This stuff I did get at the grocery store, so you might recognize it a little bit better. This, like the rosemary, will be going into both the crust and the filling. Just have to watch my fingers here. Let's see how we're doing on that. Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna need what's left of that. And just one last chop through. There we go. All right, let's transfer that to our measuring cup just to make sure we've got enough. And that actually looks perfect. So I'm just gonna put that in the same bowl as my rosemary. And I'm just gonna go ahead and mix that all up. Because then it's a little easier to measure out later on because it's already well incorporated. There we go. Okay, so the next thing I need to cut is my apple, which you're going to need about, I'm trying to aim for about a total of 3 cups of filling. A cup of that is going to be the chicken, which is going to be about 2 chicken breasts, about a pound of chicken. About a cup of that is going to be diced apple, or, you know, 1 apple diced. Depends on the size of your apple, though. So I've got 2 out, just in case 1 is not enough. And the remaining is going to be cheddar cheese. The cheddar cheese is going to be after we cook our chicken and apple. So now I'm just trying to weigh it out, measure out as best as I could. So I've got these apples here. You can go green or red just as long as it's an apple that's known to be good for cooking. So it, you know, manages to hold up. I have no idea which kind of apple this is. My parents went to Mercier Orchards about a month or 2 ago, so these are kind of old, but they're still good because they haven't gone all mushy on me. They're just a little wrinkled, but that's the thing about apples. They are like in a lot of various winter and I want to say early spring recipes, autumn recipes especially, because they last so darn long in a root cellar. So, first I just need to core it, which, yep, that apple's still looking good. I'm just going to grab a mixing bowl right here, so I have somewhere to put it. And I want to dice these, so you want to do about, I want to say, a 1/2 inch dice. So the way you do this, and let me just go ahead and reiterate, in case you've not seen my previous episodes of Munchies and Minis. A lot of knife work is making stable surfaces to create even pieces. Stable surfaces so you don't chop your hand off, and around equal sized pieces so everything cooks around the same amount of time. So I'm just going to cut about 1/2 inch thick planks here first. Then I'm going to cut the core out, and then cut that in half so it's about a 1/2 inch thick batons. And then turn that 1/2 inch thick dice. There you go. Easy dice that you don't have to cut your fingers off with. So, cut the core out, cut that in half, 1/2 inch baton, 1/2 inch dice. And actually, let me go ahead and just use my measuring cup here just to make sure I am working with the same amount of pieces. And the core's not in that piece, so I don't need to cut that out. There we go. And it looks like I don't really have any or much core piece in there, so let's go ahead and just slice that in half. And well, yes, I could peel the apple ahead of time. The reason why I'm not doing that is because I still want it to maintain its texture and body inside of the pie. So that is why I'm not doing that. So once again, here we are, cutting about 1/2 inch thick planks. Slicing out the core. And you'll notice that when I cut that piece of core out, I didn't have to worry about removing the stem or the little fuzzy piece that's at the bottom of every single apple. Save yourself some step as well as some frustration. Let's see, just a tiny bit of core there, so we'll cut that out. It looks like we're about a little over a cup, which is perfect. Because this is going to cook down. All right, and that is our cup of apple. So I'm just going to throw that into a mixing bowl here because I'm going to need this measuring cup in just a moment. And another trick, especially if it's taking you a little bit longer to prep than it normally would, to keep your apples from browning too much after slicing them, lemon juice. Lemon or lime juice helps slow down the browning process. Also very handy if you happen to have sliced apples along with your lunch. So, just going to give that a quick toss. There we go. Get these off my cutting board. Get some of this out of my way. And put the remaining rosemary off to the side so I can use it for my photos later. And proceed to spill water onto my face. Ooh, okay. I'm okay. Don't you worry about me. Alright, so since I have a mostly clean workspace going on here right now, and it's going to take me a little while to do, actually, I think I should be fine waiting on that, so let's go ahead and cut up my chicken. So, you're going to need about 2 chicken breasts out of that pack, or roughly just about a pound of chicken. Just going to grab some quart-sized bags here. Because another thing I'm going to show you, because my husband actually found chicken breasts on sale today. A buy one, get one free. And each package was actually about, well, more than twice of what I needed for today's recipe. So I'm also going to show you a little bit of a meal prep technique, especially if you happen to have a sous vide machine. Or, if not, you know, something that you can at least prep and have frozen. So when you don't have to worry about freezer burn. That's the thing I've noticed whenever I try freezing proteins. I tend to get a lot of freezer burn if it's not coated in some kind of marinade to kind of seal out the freezer air, as well as the liquid kind of coats it and protects the skin from kind of over drying, which is kind of awesome. So let's go ahead and select 2 of these delightful chicken breasts. I think I'm going to go for the largest ones. Just going to grab them here with a paper towel. There's one. And let's go for this ginormous one here. That's pretty good. Let's just use those 2. So, oh wow, these are nice and dry. I don't have to worry about patting them dry all that much. That's great. So, you just want to basically cut once again, 1/2-inch pieces. First starting out with planks. And then cubes. And that's more of an inch, so I'm going to cut that in half. And then cut that a little bit smaller. So they're all roughly about the same pieces. Same size. So they cook about the same amount of time. There we go. And if you're thinking, because I forgot to tell you, how much is one recipe going to make? This is going to be enough filling as well as dough for 6 6-inch radius pies. Well, I wouldn't say radius, more of a half-moon sort of shape. And that's one. Let it gristle off there, we don't need it. And you notice here that I've split it in half, so I've got 1/2-inch pieces when I dice it. Okay. And that's roughly about 1/2-inch. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to work. Alright, so now I'm just spreading this out in a single layer before the next step of cooking. Making sure I don't have any apple seeds on the table for one. That would not be a tasty bite. So I hope you like some cyanide in your chicken. Okay. There we go. And the reason why I'm spreading it out is because I want the meat as dry as possible, for one, before I cook it, but also so I can quickly season it before cooking it. And still have that dryness, so I get a nice good sear, like kind of crunchy, not crunchy, crispy, sort of crispy sear on some of the pieces. Get some good browning. Okay. So. Next up. I'm just going to get the remaining chicken into some marinades. And what I'm about to show you, let me go ahead and just kind of, well, first let's do the chicken. And then I can show you what I did kind of as the result of that. So let me just move this off to the side. Looks like I'm going to need 3 bags. And you only want a freezer bag that is large enough to hold whatever you're cooking in it, especially when it comes to sous vide. A lot of times when I'm working with pork loin, or pork tenderloin, I tend to use gallon-sized bags as long as most of the air is pushed out of the bag. Chicken breasts as well as pork chops, quart bags are good, just as long as they're a good freezer bag. That's your main thing. So, first, I'm definitely going to, I think I'm going to divide it, especially since there's 2 of us in my household, into 2 different meals. One for a chicken breast that we can just have as part of our meal, and the third chicken breast is going to be, I would say, suitable to first sear in a cast iron, and then, first sous vide, sear, and then cut up and put in pasta, or just bake and cut up and put in pasta. I mean, something that can go well in a meal, like a larger meal, as opposed to being the main course of the meal itself. So, let me just grab my notepad here, because this is not only about doing meal prep, it's also being able to keep track of what the heck you happen to have in your freezer. Now, if I can keep track of the notepads that I had around here. I'll use this one. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a clean sheet on, well, this'll do. So what I like to do is divide the 2 columns. One column is the number, and the second column is the type of marinade that it's in. But I'm also going to write on the bottom, chicken breasts, packed, and see, it is the 10th, I believe? Yes, it's the 10th. 2, 10, 20, 21. And as you can see, my handwriting is absolutely terrible. So I'm only going to have 2 types of preparations here, so I'm just going to go ahead and make that a grid for 1 and 2. So the first one, you're going to need some kind of Sharpie pen or felt tip pen, provided that it went back into the thing. Yes, here it is. I'm going to mark 2 of the bags as 1. Next, here's a fun little hack. You turn the top of those bags inside out so they stay open. I know, it blew my mind when I first saw it too. So, next I'm going to take a pair of tongs because I don't feel like washing my hands again, and, well, obviously I'm going to wash my hands again, but this is the only time I'm going to need tongs. So I'm just going to take... there we go. Kind of compare the size. I want, as far as meals are concerned, I want stuff that's about the same size for each person. So let's go with the largest one in the 3rd bag, and this looks 1, 2, 3. These 2 are about the same size. So I'm just gonna stick that into 1. Go in there, dang it. That's gonna keep it open and for the most part upright. Kind of, not really, but at least I don't have raw chicken going all over my countertop. Alright, so it's 1 and 2. So I'm thinking this is actually a great time to start using a lot of the leftover sauces, especially from takeout that you happen to have in your kitchen. I think I've got some balsamic glaze here. Let me just double check on that. Give that a quick taste. No, that actually smells like kind of a teriyaki sauce. But let me give it a quick try. By the way, if you need to taste multiple things and don't want to have to use a spoon every single time, it's good to have like a little mini Pret bowl, like so you don't contaminate your spoon. That is kind of a interesting... Tastes a little bit like balsamic vinegar, but also tastes a little bit like soy sauce. I think I might... Okay, so I think I'm going to do with this is do a couple spoonfuls of balsamic glaze here. 1 and 2. And let's see what else I've got in here. I did like that flavor with the... what's it called? I thought it tasted a little bit like soy sauce, but I might be mistaken there. How good is this the Dijon mustard is starting to turn a little bit, so that's going in the trash. However, I have some whole grain mustard with lemon. I think I'm gonna give this a bit of a rinse. Get some whole grain mustard in there. And pump up the savoriness in there with... I've got some mushroom soy sauce, as well as vegetarian Worcestershire sauce. So, come on. There we go. Kind of a splash in there. And a little bit of Bulldog Worcestershire sauce, which is what I used for the yakisoba sauce for my Beastars yakisoba recipe. It's vegetarian, which is great, because everyone in Beastars is at least supposed to be vegetarian. And it's very taboo not to be. So, I'm just going to go ahead, roll up the top of that. And then be all weird and gross and stuff by massaging the chicken into the marinade. Okay. So now that's all kind of mixed up and everything. I'm just going to kind of flatten that a bit. Push the air out of the corners. Actually, come to think of it, it needs some oil. So I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to that. kind of need just a little bit of fat to, one, make the flavors marry a bit, but also to help protect the skin, protect the flesh of that chicken that's in there from your freezer. So, okay, that's kind of nice and full. I'm just going to flatten that out, pull up to get some more of that air out, concentrate it, pull it over, seal it up. There's one. A bit of olive oil to this one. Do the whole mixy treatment. I think my camera might have... Oh, no. Camera's fine. Okay. Seal that up in there. There we go. 1 and 1. Now I just need to write down what the heck I did there. So, I did balsamic glaze, mushroom, soy, whole grain mustard, olive oil, and how do I spell that? Worcestershire sauce. Okay, that's 1. Now for number 2, and also put a little X, the number of how many are in there. Number 2 is going to be only 1, so and I need to figure out what the heck to do with that one. So first, like I showed you earlier with the first bags, just gonna write down the number that this is. And then should come to think of it, since I've already done pork, right, C for chicken. So I can tell it apart from the pork. As well as put emphasis on the C on my checklist there. Alright. So let's get that third one in there. Alright, now I just need to figure out what the heck to put in it. So with pasta, well, usually you kind of want to go for an olive oil sort of base thing, but I think I've got some other interesting ingredients here. Just to figure out what the heck they are. At this point, I might just end up doing something very similar, come to think of it. Yeah, I think that's the case. I've got horseradish. I mean, that could be interesting with some Worcestershire sauce. Did I already put the Worcestershire sauce away? Or did I put it back in? I put it back in. Okay, here it is. Horseradish, Worcestershire sauce. Probably the olive oil again. But maybe I throw in a different type of vinegar. Maybe a sherry vinegar. Yes, we'll do that. Got some sherry vinegar up here. So, already got my spoon here. Let's see if I can even get this spoon into... I cannot. This spoon is going to be used for other things. Get a smaller spoon. Decent chunk of horseradish there. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Okay, a lot of Worcestershire sauce. A bit of olive oil. Garlic pepper. Let's put that in there too. Garlic pepper, garlic powder. Well, garlic pepper could be pretty good, but there's so much horseradish in there anyway, I don't really think it needs it. There we go. And a bit of sherry vinegar, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay. Now keep in mind, just because you put something in a marinade doesn't mean you have to put the marinade in, the remaining marinade in when you cook it. You can discard that. But, like I said, this will help protect it when you freeze it, so you're less likely to get freezer burn. That is looking and smelling pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit more garlic powder, though, because that horseradish is pretty strong. And I'm just going by smell here. Actually, since I already have my spices out, I'm going to throw some herbs de Provence in there. Add a little bit more herbal flavor. And yes, you can put herbs in there as well, as I've just shown. So, okay. Just a touch more oil. And just kind of fold that over to get as much air out of that section as possible, as well as out of your bag. Seal that up and fold it over so it doesn't leak out. Okay, so now that that's all done, I just have to write down what I put in it. So that would be olive oil, sherry vinegar, Worcestershire sauce, horseradish, garlic powder, and herbs de Provence. Alright, so now that I've got my list, I'm going to go ahead and put that up on the side of my fridge with a magnet so I can keep track of what I happen to have in the freezer. And as I manage to cook it throughout the week, I can just cross it off the list when I'm done. So, I'm just gonna, now that I have those, stick those straight into the freezer. Actually, I forgot to put a C, though, on that one, so let's go ahead and do that. Make sure it is a felt tip pen, by the way, otherwise you're going to possibly pierce your bag. So, there's my chicken. I'm just gonna stick that in my freezer. And to give you an idea of how it's going to look, I did this same thing with pork chops recently, and to see how it froze the marinade but not the actual meat. Like, I don't really have any freezer burn spots at all. Well, maybe a little bit of freezer stuff with the number 5 marinade, but I think that's mostly a liquid-based marinade. But with number 3, when I have it in some apple butter barbecue sauce, see how well sealed that is? And I'm just gonna, you know, when I cook them up, it's gonna go into the sous vide, or I just thaw them ahead of time. Let me just clear the way. And I'm going to at least move this out of the way, because I've got a whole nother package of chicken, and if I have some time while waiting for things to bake, which I probably will, we'll go ahead and do some prep work with that while waiting for pies to bake. So, right, now that I've bored you thoroughly with my meal prep, kinda hoping to do that, it's time to get cooking, or at least do a little bit of shredding. So what you're gonna need for this next step, that's a clean knife, right? Yes, that's a clean knife. You're gonna need about 3 to 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. For that, I need a stick of butter, as well as your stovetop. So, this next step, first you want to preheat your skillet over medium heat for about 2 to 3 minutes. There we go. And figure out what the heck I was going to do next, now that I'm actually reading the recipe I wrote down. Okay, so this next step. First, I'm gonna wash this knife so I don't have to later. Never, ever, ever put your kitchen knives in the dishwasher. It'll ruin your knife. So don't do it. So I just gotta hand wash it. I do about 20 seconds on each side. 1. I kind of count in my head normally. I know you didn't really come on the stream to watch me do dishes, but you know, I do what I can. Okay. And especially with poultry, though, you want to go at least 20 seconds on each side. Alright, I'm just going to leave that to dry while I am waiting for my skillet to preheat, which I've got about 1.5 minutes left. So, next step, you want to thoroughly season your chicken, which, let's go ahead and do that. What I like to do, kosher salt. It's great. The salinity is actually less than that of table salt. It's also a great cooking salt because it's good to season throughout, and you can pretty much taste the results of your cooking as you're cooking much more easily than you would with table salt. So, hey Chiptune Brony, welcome back. Good to see you. So, standard how to like whenever you see a pinch of kosher salt in a recipe, this is how you do it. You take about 3 of your fingers, or if you have large fingers, 2. Though honestly, it's easier with 3. And your thumb. Well, first make sure your kosher salt is not all clumped up like that. And season high so you can get a better spread of where you're seasoning and have better control over it. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, it works. Now, my chicken's already pretty dry, so I don't have to worry about drying it again with paper towels. But you want to dry your chicken with paper towels before you do that, so it gets a good sear. Next, I'm just gonna season with pepper. And that is the sound of my timer for my skillet preheating going off. So then I'm just going to add about 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter to my hot pan. There we go. How am I doing? I'm actually doing pretty well right now. I mean, earlier I will admit I was a bit exhausted because I have been watching the impeachment trial. Okay. Let's see. On C-SPAN, so I will admit it was pretty terrifying to watch, because they had footage from the storming of the Capitol that had not been aired on any network yet, so that was a little scary. But other than that, I'm actually kind of happy that I would manage to get this recipe written out and everything together well ahead of time. So you see the tweet about the need of mushroom bread? I did. I haven't a chance to listen to it yet. That's the thing. I don't remember mushrooms being in Myst, but that's one of those cases where it's a game I just have to play again, just because it's been so long. And I will admit, the second time I did a playthrough of Myst, I think it was on my iPad. I'm going to turn down the heat just a little bit. Okay, now that my butter is melted, now it's time to add the chicken. Which, since I had those filthy chicken tongs, just going to add that in a single layer in our pan. We don't need that anymore, so we can go in the sink. And set the timer for about a minute. And I'm just gonna go ahead and season. It's like strike. I have the whole Myst series if you ever want to borrow. Heck, I have a working Myst book that shows the sequence from the linking panel. Oh my god. So oh gosh. I think I might be able to get Myst though on Steam pretty cheaply. It's one of those where they don't really charge so much for games after they get past a certain age. Though I did finish Myst, I never actually finished Riven. And part of it was, when I first started playing Myst, I was young and dumb and didn't know how any of the puzzles work. I was a kid, so I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna play Math Blasters or something. And do equally terribly. Let's see. I'm that level of Mr. I'm glad it tasted like root beer. Mushroom bread tasted like root beer. Okay, that's Real Myst Masterpiece Edition. Good to know. Now, my dad got both Myst and Riven, and yeah, played the crap out of it. Let's see, stir cook for about 3 minutes, then add the apple. So, I'm gonna stir cook this for about 3 minutes. So, see how I got that good little browning on the chicken there? So I think I'm gonna leave it undisturbed for a little bit to get just a little bit more browning on that, so I can read my comments. Not the Russian bread, the syrup. Excellent. That's good to know. Yeah, I saw that other thing that you posted later. And if I scroll up, I can actually... Where'd my mouse go? Yes. Oh yes, the Sunset Sarsaparilla. Yeah, goodness, that... So do you end up making your own simple syrup for that chiptune brownie? Because... I will admit that I think Victoria got me on a little bit of a simple syrup kick since the, what's it called, the official Fallout cookbook that she wrote. Yeah. Some more water. Alright. Another thing I have to do is I need to shred some cheese, which I'm going to need about a cup of. Though, let's see, here's my measuring cup. Yeah, well, I mean, you saw that I was making simple syrups first for my Welcome Night Vale recipe for pineapple sage lemonade. And then I did a bunch of simple syrups for my Drinking Quest episode of Munchies and Minis. And I will admit, since I've been doing a lot more kitchen witchcraft, I've been finding a way of adding a bit more magic into the kitchen, is making syrups, kind of like basically making tea syrups out of various herbal infusions and whatnot. So yep, she did not add that to her Fallout cookbook, which I'm disappointed, I know. Oh man, I need to actually finish a Fallout game. Kitchen witchcraft, yes, I'm a witch. I am a practicing magic user, which I know it's not really something you hear anyone saying, but I've got more into it, I want to say, over this past year. Let's see, that's my cheese, that's my chicken. Let's go ahead and finish New Vegas. Yeah, I haven't, I started Fallout 4. And then it's just a matter if I happen to have time to play on the big computer, because my laptop is not, like, while I do have, what's it called? I did upgrade the memory recently on it. I'm just super nervous about playing anything that requires too big of a memory hit, because I've had laptops fry on me before from game playing. Even though I have a gaming laptop, I try to keep my stuff with like the really high level graphics, like for example, Baldur's Gate 3, that's for the gaming desktop. Because then I don't have to worry about my body heat possibly helping fry my motherboard. Let's see, crap, I forgot to add the garlic. I forgot to chop up garlic. You know what? We're not going to have garlic. We're going to leave garlic completely out of this. Or we're just going to do garlic powder. We're going to do garlic powder. So, let's go to garlic powder for about, let's do about a teaspoon. Teaspoon garlic powder. Okay. Do you know I want to learn to get things organized? Telekinesis. Oh, yeah, you don't have to tell me twice. Okay, let's see. And the remaining butter, half the chives, and the rosemary, and a pinch of kosher salt. I got distracted! More butter. It's okay. I think it's been about 2 minutes. Okay. So, got our butter. And we're going to do about half of that rosemary and chive mix, so about a quarter cup. Right there. Because the rest of that's going in the crust. And a pinch of kosher salt. Now, yeah, no, I totally get you on the whole wanting telekinesis thing. As someone who spent, like, the last, oh god, 2 weekends doing a deep clean of my living room and dining room, I completely get that. Oh my gosh, this is smelling awesome. And we'll do about a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Yeah, Unless third time's the I don't think twice. Yeah, the rosemary and chive smell is really coming out right now. Getting some really good browning on that. I'm very happy with how this is turning out. So, let's see. I'm going to add that ½ teaspoon of garlic powder. And next up, let's see, how much did I actually write into that? 1/4 cup, okay. Good, I've got the right measuring cup. So, you want to cook that. If it was fresh garlic, I would say about 30 seconds. Powdered garlic, you could probably go for a minute. Also, I'm kind of wanting my apples to soften up just a little bit, but I think we are good. And you can see that's definitely cooking down. In the meantime, we have our dry vermouth. We're going to need about 1/4 cup of that. So, should have mentioned chive. Third time's a okay. So, yeah, that is looking fantastic. And now I'm just going to glaze the pan with about 1/4 cup of dry vermouth. Scrape up that fond. I will admit it's probably a bit more of a stew. And now you just kind of want to cook, let that cook until all of that liquid has absorbed. I'm just going to make sure I've got enough cheese here. I could probably add a wee bit more. As well as give myself a cook tax of a slice of cheese. Because I have not had dinner yet tonight. This is my dinner. And I'm not gonna lie, that smells amazing. Alright. Do we really need the dry vermouth? Yes, we do! Also, because part of it, with Felzoun's Folly, the tavern that this recipe is based off of, they offer about 6 types of white wine. So the vermouth adds a little bit of nice acidity. I would have done hard cider, but considering that there is no hard cider listed at all in the menu of drinks on the tavern description and follows guide, I had to do something that would work well with the herbs that I'm using, as well as cheddar and chicken, and that was actually dry vermouth, believe it or not. A good website to check out, especially if you're doing any cooking and want to try different flavor pairings, is foodpairing.com. You can put in the ingredients in kind of a web form, and it will pop up with the various ingredients that share certain aromatic matches, is flavor compounds and whatnot, and dry vermouth was one of those things. So, anything that we can use without a trip to the liquor store. White wine. Dry white wine, or, I mean, you could use apple juice, or some lemon juice for a little bit of extra, or just use water. I mean, you won't get as much of the acidity, but it does add a nice little fruity flavor in addition to the apple. So, it's up to you. Up to you for taking a trip to the liquor store. Vinegar. Yes, vinegar will also work, especially if it is a white wine vinegar or an apple cider vinegar. Those would work very well with this. Or if you happen to have sherry vinegar, that also adds kind of an interesting flavor to this. And looks like the majority of my liquid has cooked off. Excellent. So, that means our filling is, for the most part, pretty darn done. So, this is when I'm going to go ahead and transfer all of this to mixing bowl. Oh, an apple piece. Okay. So, the biggest thing is you need something to deglaze that skillet, even if it's water or vinegar, to get all that nice brown bits off the bottom of your pan. Let's switch back to prep so you can see what I'm doing. Let's see. Apple juice plus apple vinegar? You could. I tried to figure out how to stay out of LC. I have no idea. I guess LCB is probably your grocery store. I totally get that. Thank you, Paige. Of course. No, that's why I'm here. I mean, this is also why you join me live, so you're able to kind of get an idea of what you can do. Alright, so that's our filling. I do want it to chill a bit before I add my cheese because I don't want it going all melty on me quite yet. So I'm going to cover this and stick it in the fridge to do a wee bit of a chill. You know, that's, like I said, why I'm here. Make sure that you get the information you need, and yeah, I mean, like I said, as long as you have something to deglaze that skillet, get all that glorious brown fond off the surface of the pan. Speaking of which, I'm about to deglaze the skillet again to clean it, because I like using cast iron. Okay, you can see what I'm doing here. Quick way to clean your cast iron. 2 paper towels. 1, after rinsing, you dry all that excess water off the surface of your skillet. It also gets a little bit of that extra bits of whatever you were cooking off the surface, like so. Next, cooking spray. Give it a quick spritz. Paper towel. Cover the surface again. Really make sure to rub that in there. Turn off your skillet. Move it to the back to cool with your oil still in there to absorb and re-season your pan. Okay. LCBO's placed legally. Oh, right. Ontario. Got it. Okay, yeah. No, you can use water. You can use apple juice. You can use apple cider vinegar. You can use white wine vinegar. And like I said, if you just want to avoid the trip entirely, water. Just get those brown bits up and you're golden. So, where did that bag go? I had a Ziploc bag somewhere around here, or I totally forgot to get it because I was running up and getting things. So, quart bag, cheese. Do I have enough cheese? Is that... Am I kidding myself when I'm asking that question? You can never have enough cheese. I'll be good. I'll be good. No, I totally understand that because I know that North Carolina and Utah both have state-run liquor stores, so it's a pain in the butt. I mean, I remember when I was visiting Utah for a food blogger conference, and I went to a bar, and they had to take a picture of, like, they had to scan my ID to basically register that I was drinking liquor in the state. It was weird. There's no such thing as enough cheese. Yes, you are very much correct. Angsthaise. I apologize if I'm completely butchering your screen name. Anyway, yes, next step of our pie making is, of course, the crust. We're going to be doing a hot water crust today, which of course requires hot water. But also, let's go ahead and get our dry ingredients together, because that way I can rinse off my measuring cup and give it a day. So, what you're going to need, switch to our giant metal bowl, and yes, you're going to want a heat-resistant bowl because you're going to be pouring boiling hot water into this bowl. You need something that can handle it, which, coincidentally enough, you're also going to need a trivet if you happen to have a countertop that can't handle high heat. I mean, it's not going to burn or melt your countertop, but it's just better in general to protect your workspace. So, Chinese New Year sales might happen on Steam or not. Yeah, I need to check on that. I was already, well, I wouldn't say bad. Recently, my husband and I, like I said, we cleaned out the dining room and living room. Dining room has most of our bookcases, and we managed to take enough to 2nd and Charles to get about $50 in store credit. And a lot of it was like, oh god, books that I had gotten from the Borders liquidation, like, oh god, I want to say 10 years ago? Yeah, it was more than 10 years ago, if I remember correctly. Got some Wii games, though they don't take PC games, apparently. But oh, anyway, back to the recipe. You need about 4 cups of all-purpose flour. The remaining herbs, you're just going to want to sprinkle that in there. Tear up that last bit a little bit so it's not messing with your crust. You're going to want about 2 teaspoons of salt, or if you're lazy like I am, kind of a pinch and a half of kosher salt. And you're going to want to whisk that together to well incorporate it. And yes, that is the Tetris theme playing in the background. Do you know how to ferment soda drinks in bottles? You don't normally ferment soda. You would normally, gosh, I know how to make mead. I have never made any fermented carbonated beverages, except for the one time when I think ThinkGeek had this whole make your own wine, like make your own alcohol by adding brewer's yeast to bottles of juice, of organic juice. Yeah, that was a bit weird. I would say when you're making sodas, use club soda with whatever mixed syrup that you're making. So either that or use a soda stream, which I do not have. But no, my husband and I, we do brew our own mead. It's been a while. Alright, so that is pretty darn incorporated, so we don't need this anymore. And next, before I trip over the stool in the middle of my kitchen, which I keep on forgetting is there, you're gonna need a small saucepan. And you're gonna need a half a cup of milk and a half a cup of water. Since there's only 2 of us and we don't drink milk all that often between all the cheese we eat, I'm using powdered milk because it keeps better. And usually you want about a 1-to-1 ratio of milk powder to water, which, oops, it's gonna go into dry mix. And I already threw away the whisk, so it's gonna be put into a fork. It's like you can make ginger beer as a fermentation project. You can. However, we've tried doing that. It's difficult to do without it tasting terrible. We need to find a better recipe for it, to be honest with you. But thing is, ginger beer is alcoholic. You got to keep in mind, anytime you do fermentation, you are going to get alcohol as a byproduct. I mean, technically, vinegar is just really old wine. Or really old cider. But a seltzer bottle, yeah, when we do fermentation, we do making mead. Have you ever seen those? We tried doing ginger beer. Backing up. We tried making our own ginger beer. Like, you know, the wine bottles that comes in like the big kind of huge glass bottle with the neck that's kind of this thick? That thick? Yeah, that's what we first started making mead in. And we also tried making ginger beer in it. The more we started making mead, we actually started getting those big water cooler bottles, like the 5-gallon water cooler bottles. And then we started using, like, recently, you can get these giant 5-gallon glass containers to make kimchi in from H Mart, like any Korean or Asian grocery store. And since it was glass and a little more stable, we decided to use that for our mead making. Yeah. It's up to you. We've never actually made a ginger beer that tastes good, so I can't really give you the best instructions on that, but someday we'll put our mead recipe on the blog. Just haven't decided on when we're going to do that yet. I mean, if anything, we're actually kind of perfecting our recipe. So, as I was saying, you're going to need about a cup of water, a cup of milk, half a cup of water, half a cup of milk. I'm just going to be using a cup of water because I added the milk powder to my flour mix. And I'm just going to check real quick to make sure that I have that correct. Yes, I do have that correct. And next, you're going to need about a cup of lard or in possibly vegetable shortening. Snow-capped lard is actually cheaper and you can find it at most grocery stores. And it also just has a more authentic flavor, or you can use bacon, rendered bacon fat. So, we're just gonna hope I have enough lard left over. Now, a lot of times this is when I'll just take the whole thing of lard and shred it into a cup. Mine's gone a little bit soft for that at this point, so we're just gonna scoop whatever's left in here into my measuring cup. And I hope I have enough, and if I don't, I'm just going to go for the bacon fat. That's about a half a cup. And I think I have just enough, to make this batch of pies. I believe I do. And just like vegetable shortening, it's shelf stable and pretty darn flavorless. So great for baking. Let's see. I'm letting my 3 bottles sit there and ferment for 6 days until it bubbles up. Thing you want to get, though, if you're doing fermentation, is you're going to want a bottle trap, because then you have the danger of your bottles exploding. So make sure you have a bottle trap as well as a cap that fits the bottle to put that bottle trap in. And when you want to stop fermentation, you just put the whole darn thing into the fridge. Though sometimes that doesn't always get it. Sometimes your fridge is not cold enough to quite kill it off. That is when there's another brewing thing you want to get. It's called potassium sorbate. It is a preservative, and it prevents your yeast from reproducing, so it will eventually die out. Because the thing about fermentation is that yeast produces, especially wild yeast, produces alcohol, yes. But when it gets to a certain alcohol content, it kills itself. So if it can't reproduce, it basically eventually stops fermentation on its own after a certain alcohol level. It basically has a lifespan as it's fermenting. So keep that in mind, because like I said, you don't want your bottles exploding. Not to mention, too, the more it eats, the less sweet your mix is going to be. Now, the reason why we like making mead is, one, it's easy, and two, it's easy. There are some things we've had to learn to keep our mead from tasting god-awful, mind you, but while it takes a long time to make, because it takes a while for it to mellow out, so you are bottle trapping. Awesome. Good to know. It does take a while to mellow out, but it's also kind of the lazy man's alcohol. I mean, you just kind of set it and forget it, which is not really recommended all the time, but it's happened and we've had great mead. So, alright. So I've got my lard and water. So, just gonna turn on the stovetop here. And first, I want it to melt. Then, I want it to boil. But that's also why I need to keep an eye on it. Because lard boiling over a flame stovetop is not a fun thing. It's not a good thing. Not for your house, not for your apartment, and definitely not for your security deposit. So, be careful, friends. Let's see, tablespoon of ginger into the bottle before trapped it and keeping in room temperature place. Okay. Yeah, because the ginger beer recipe that we tried, it was this British guy was making it on YouTube. And he was making it with ginger and limes, and I can't remember if he was making it with honey or sugar. But yeah, our basic mead recipe is about 3 to 4 pounds of honey per gallon of water, and I want to say about a teaspoon of Lalvin's D47 sweet mead yeast. And usually we heat the honey up now before adding the yeast, and we have to proof the yeast too to make sure it gets activated, especially when you want it to have it be a certain temperature. But then we also ferment as well as age with toasted oat chips, so it has a very vanilla forward flavor to it. But I mean, I think my favorite bottle of flavored mead I've ever made was apple rosemary, and oh, it was so good. That I discovered that flavor combination from what's it called? Local farmer's market, and there was someone selling jam, and they had an apple rosemary jelly that was just to die for. Okay, so as you see, I am waiting for that lard to melt, and while I am waiting for it to do so, I'm going to grab the following. a spatula. I'm also going to, if you happen to have a tea kettle, this part makes it a lot easier to put together your pies, trust me. So I'm going to heat up a kettle of water and just wait for that to start boiling and everything. And get a baking dish. Now granted, you're not going to find this on the recipe, but this is a tip. Just normal electric kettle? Sure, whatever kettle you have. Because thing is, a big thing with working with hot water crust is you need to keep the crust warm to keep it pliable. So what I like to do is I take a baking sheet here, put that on top of a trivet, and then put my bowl on top of that. To be able to keep this warm, oh, we're getting towards a boil. I'm just going to lower the heat on that a little bit. I'm also going to grab a plate here that's large enough to cover my bowl, kind of like so. So the tea kettle of water allows me to add hot water to this baking dish down here to keep the dough warm on the underside. Therefore, I have, especially if you want to be making your crust a little bit more decorative, like I did with my Dragon Age fish pies, I made them into the shape of little fishies. You need a little bit more time to have that crust stay pliable. It's harder to do once it cools down. So this, like I said, it's just an easier way to keep it warm, which is going to be playing a factor. Okay, we are melted and we are boiling. So, next step, gonna take it right off of my, pour that. And this is where I said that heat safe bowl was needed. So, heat safe bowl, spatula, and now I'm just going to stir all of that together. And this is also why you need a spatula, because you're pouring boiling hot water into your dough. So protect your hands and your sanity, please. Also, another thing with the kettle, if you happen to need a little bit more liquid, which we're not at that point yet, trust me, it only looks like we have too much flour, you can add a little bit more hot water to work into the dough. However, we don't need that yet. I need to keep this bowl stable. So, we're just going to keep on stirring and folding. Rip chicken? I'm confused. Okay. See how that dough is coming together? By this point, it should be slightly cool enough to actually work with your hands. Oh yeah. So I'm just going to do that to make this go a little bit faster. Chicken is cool, yeah. All right. And give yourself a little bit of an arm workout while you're at it. See what I mean? And how it comes together? And it looks like I'm going to have to add just a touch of that boiling water, which, it's at 179, that's a pretty good place to go. Just a touch. To soak up that remaining flour. But since I did just add very hot water, go back to that spatula to continue mixing. Baker biceps, yep. Oh, this is why I don't do baking all that often. I admittedly am a bit more of a savory cook, but the reason why I like this crust dough recipe so much is that I do have... I have warm hands, which does not work well for pastry dough. Well, most pastry dough, which tends to operate on very cold items, like cold butter. Which is why I don't make all those fancy crusted pies, unless they happen to be, well, hot water crust, like this one. Because the hotter, the better, the more pliable it is, the more likely it's going to hold shape as you're doing fun shapes. Okay, cool. Well, my water is done boiling. This is what I need to do next. So, now that I've got a dough, I just need to first create an even layer at the bottom of my bowl, because that makes it a lot easier to divide into the portions we need for each pie. So you want it, for the most part, an even level. Next, I'm just going to take my spatula here, or my knife right here, that works too. And I want to divide this into 6, because I want to make 6 pies. Now that I've divided it, I need to make it ready to roll out. By doing that, to do that, take a portion and roll it into a ball. Won't hot dough be tough, yes, though? Yes, but it is also more of a medieval type staple, especially it's sturdier to be able to eat with one hand if needed. I mean, this kind of dough is actually designed more to be a baking vessel than that kind of soft, flaky stuff you like. I mean, if you want, you can make the same filling and use, what's it called, puff pastry, because that tends to be a little bit more forgiving. Just a little bit, that's that. And, you know, just roll and cut. But since I like to also mix the herbs into the dough itself, and I don't like making regular pie crusts because they hate me, tend to get all sloppy on me every time I'm rolling them out. So these are the coffins we see in older recipes, yeah. But these tend to be a little bit more flavorful. And we're also going to be doing an egg wash on them too to soften up the crust just a little bit. Also, the milk in the crust makes it just a little bit more flaky than, say, a simple water and flour dough. Alright, so that's 6 balls, yeah. I had to do a quick count there. Just gonna cover that to keep warm. But, and take that baking dish I was showing you earlier. Set the bowl into that. And that kettle I was showing you earlier, just gonna pour that directly into the baking dish to keep that warm. Here, I can show you what I'm doing here. Kind of pouring it into the side there, if you can see. So that's going to keep my dough warm while I am rolling it out and working with it. It's kind of like a sort of a makeshift chafing dish in some respects. All right, Chiptune Brony, good to see ya. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that I have that keeping warm, it's time to bring the filling out of my refrigerator, which should be cool enough now to add the cheese. Oh yeah, that's perfect. So now I'm just going to add the cheese to that. Thinking steam table, it's the same thing. But yeah. It's a lot of times those little heater cans are over a thing of water, and then the tray is set into that. And it looks like it's still a bit hot, but we'll make do. We'll work with it. All right. So I'm just gonna fold that all in. Just like with the crust, I'm going to divide that into 6 portions. Roughly. And stupid me forgot to preheat my oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just going to do that in convection bake to make it go faster. And grab some cookie sheets, baking sheets. I think I had a larger one at some point. Well, this should still do. And I'm just going to line these with some parchment paper. That there while I'm working on stuff. Alright, so get that out of the way. Right, so I'm just gonna wipe down my surface a little bit, get out my rolling pin, provided that has not flown the coop, which tends to happen sometimes when I'm receiving help cleaning my kitchen. Where the... Haha! Rolling pin! Yes! Thought chafing dishes had those silly candle things. Actually, they do, but it still operates on the same... what's it called? The same principle. Because the thing is, if you have fire directly against the surface, as opposed to having some kind of layer that's acts as kind of an insulation, it ends up kind of burning things. So it's the same concept, so we are both right. So it's just a different name for it. All right, I'm gonna grab one of those balls of dough, cover them back up. Don't be. Do not be sorry. You are absolutely golden. All right, so now I'm just gonna roll this dough after flattening the ball to as close as a 6-inch diameter as I possibly can. And way kind of keeping it from sticking is to do kind of a roll and quarter turn. I like to do this kind of rolling technique when I make lefse as well. All right. And you see it keeps from sticking to the board, as well as kind of helps me get an even, well, as even as I can circle. So that's roughly 6 inches. So now I'm just going to take a 1/6 of that. I need a spoon for this. This'll do. Of that filling. Like so. Pull my camera out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Kind of arrange that on half of your circle. And carefully fold over the top and crimp and press to seal. Now I'm just going to roll up the edge a little bit. Looks like mine's a little crumbly, but should be fine. I mean, if you want, you can take a fork and do a little... Actually, no, we're not going to do that. Because it's just telling me, nope, I don't want to do that. So, just going to take that pie and then move it to our baking sheet here. And go back. Once again, flatten that and roll. Another reason why I like using hot water crust on this sort of thing, it's less likely to stick to things. It sounds like my oven is preheated. Okay. All right. Let's take that next portion of filling out. Yep. Have it go all over your prep board, like so. Okay. Okay. And this one I can actually do a little bit of rolling on that crust there. Okay. Okay. You want to leave at least about a ½ inch border on the edge there before folding it over and pressing it to seal. Let's see if this works. Kind of a looks like I'm gonna have to add some more hot water to that dish. Also, I have another sharp knife ready to go ahead and cut some vents on the top there. Oh, I was hoping not to have to pull this out, but let's go with my pairing. Ah, here we are. I'm just gonna cut some vents on the top. Should be able to fit another pie on here. waiting for that water to heat up, though, I can get the final touch on some of this. Grab an egg. So I'm going to be doing a bit of an egg wash on this. Ah. There you go. All right. 195, perfect. Whew. And while I'm waiting for that to kind of re-warm up a little bit, I'm just going to go ahead and cut some vents on top of the pies I already have assembled. Yeah. All right, well, let's see if our dough has re-warmed up a little bit. As you noticed, when the dough starts to cool down, it starts to get brittle. So I just want that to warm up a little bit more for me. Oh, goodness. All right. Now, let's see if it works. Okay. This one feels... yeah. Okay. 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 Where did my knife go? Ah, here we are. Just gotta cut those vents. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and get those in the oven, because they need to bake. But what I need to do first is brush the crust with some beaten egg. Let me go ahead and switch the camera for that, so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Here's what you're doing. Ah. Stay. Stay. Okay. Stay in. No! Gah! It did not stay. That makes me sad. We'll have to use a spoon. Okay. Alright, so the last little touch I like to do is just do a quick seasoning of kosher salt on top before sticking it in the oven for... Oh, this was a bad idea. Just go ahead and show you what I'm doing here. There was another magnet here. Where'd it go? Ah! Yeah. You get to see all the angles of my kitchen. Or maybe... There we go! Okay. Right. I need to move a rack in my oven. And then put the pies in. Then set a timer for about 30 minutes. Before we check it, you want to basically bake it until the crust is golden. So, there we are. Back. See if that works. Sounds like a terrifying thing to say during a live broadcast. I know, I know. This is why I am more of a cook than a baker. Alright, let's see if the crust is warmer. Yeah, it's... This one... This one's better. Alright. 2 more pies. 2 more. Alright. It's really been forever since I've made hand pies, so it's like, oh, I know how to do this. I can make these in my sleep. Yeah, sure, you could if you've been making them every day for a while, but it's been a while. Considering the last time I made pies like this was for my wizard party in 2019. I miss having parties. I miss being able to cook for lots of people. I'm looking forward to everyone getting vaccinated so I can host my big wizard wingding. Again, that's right, you're new to the blog. So my husband and I, every year, provided there's no pandemic, host a wizard-themed house party where all wizards are welcome except for the Grand Wizard of the KKK because he's racist. So, I mean, we go all out, we decorate the house to have it look like there's the inside of a wizard tower. I make a ton of food. And we haven't been able to have it in over a year because COVID. Because I am responsible. Kind of. You can make them in your sleep. Unfortunately, you're currently awake. Yeah. Good one. So yeah, it's been a hot minute. But the last time I did it, I was making kind of a vegan take on pumpkin pasties. On savory pumpkin pasties. By using vegetable shortening in the crust. And doing a chickpea pumpkin base with caramelized onions. Turned out quite good. They disappeared within an hour. All wizards welcome, sorcerers keep out. Yep. So yeah, we, though it's kind of funny because my former bandmates made up their own wizarding school. The, I think it was Dumbledore's online academy for genuinely terrible wizards. And it only had one house, House Grundlesniff. Food at Wizarding Wingdings does tend to disappear. Yes, it does. But, yeah. If you're part of this online academy, everyone is House Grundlesniff. And there's a Grundlesniff fight song, and they went all out. So we decided, because we've discovered, J.K. Rowling's a TERF. And also, it's been a year. The story we're basically going to be doing for this year's Wizard Party, that is, if we have it, if everyone manages to get vaccinated and there happens to be good enough herd immunity by that point. The story is, COVID shut down Hogwarts and all the other wizard schools in the entire world. As a result, everyone was transferred to the Wizarding Academy, online Wizarding Academy, and all sorted it into House Grundlesniff in the year 2020. So, as a result, since everyone is House Grundlesniff, it's basically going to be a House Grundlesniff party. With a common room, potions, i.e. cocktails, and party food and all sorts of crazy stuff. The authors unfortunately ruined the work for me too. I mean, I still love the lore behind it. I love the community that got behind it, but at the same time, I cannot. She went off the deep end, I mean, I know that usually means they were there to begin with, but I guess she felt brave enough to show just how off the deep end she was, which sucks, because We also really loved the whole kind of wizard academia aesthetic, especially that came with the whole Art Deco sort of look and everything with Fantastic Beasts. It's like I need to do something with licorice all sorts for the sword. I've never heard of all sorts before. Is that some kind of Canadian or British sweet? I don't remember. Like when I lived in England, I don't remember all sorts. But if I do have other wizards featured, like other Wizarding Academies featured in my Wizarding party. For example, I made some skull-shaped cheese balls for Pizza Skull from Hello from the Magic Tavern, as well as Usador's Salsa of Light and Shadow. I also make Dresden Files recipes. And, God, what else? I need to actually read The Magicians, so I can figure out stuff for that. Let's see. Probably British. It's likely. Well, I've been trying to find some other book series to read and to do recipes from. I'm currently working on, not wizard related, but I'm currently working on reading the Percy Jackson series. And I've got a couple ideas already to cook up once the weather starts turning greener. And I can actually photograph to make it look like it's being served at a summer camp, as opposed to the dry and gray stuff we have going on right now outside. Let's see, Tanya Huff's Sing the Four Quarters. I heard the author. I have not actually tried reading those books yet. I will add it to my library list. Tanya Huff, will do. God, what else? I mean, I know Netflix is trying to do the whole Wink series as a kind of like Pretty Little Liars type thing, almost. But I've never actually watched the original cartoon. And I actually need to get caught up on Sabrina. I mean, I will admit, I'm having a hard as hell time watching it. But yeah, Tanya Huff Sing the Four Quarters. I will look that up. Let's see, I'm also... Goodness. Just trying to find magic stuff is a bit difficult, though I am finding, I'm enjoying how more multicultural fantasy is starting to become popular and start publishing. Like, God, I wish there was more food listed in it, but there was this book by, what's her name? Can't remember her first name. I think Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I read one of her novels about a young woman in Mexico, outside of Merida, who happens to find the god of death locked up in her grandfather's trunk. And it is beautifully written. So much Aztec and I think actually mostly Mayan imagery. Absolutely gorgeous. She also has a book called Mexican Gothic that I really like to read too. Let's see, if you tolerate YA lit, the Want to Be a Wizard series was fun. I love YA lit. That's also part of the reason why I'm reading Percy Jackson right now. Even though Percy Jackson technically is a little bit more middle grade, come to think of it. I would not recommend this as the perfect way to brush on egg white onto your pastry, but this is what I'm having to do because because I dropped my brush. You work with what you have. When you have it. Watch it be the best looking ones out of the whole bunch, too. That'll be just my luck. But yeah, let's see, I did recently agree to submit to the Devil Wears Salad Gazette, so I'm going to try to get back into Redwall a little bit more, especially since I have a ton of hardcovers I found in the estate sale. And, God, what else am I working on? Huh. Brain. I can't brain right now. Let's see. You're off camera. There you are. Yes, I am. Yes. Alright. Let's get these pies into the mix. Put those towards the back. And set another timer for about, yes, 30 minutes. Yeah. Timer. Start. Okay. I can do things. Alright, let's go ahead and put this back down on the stove, because I'm going to make a little side dish. Because it says in Volo's guide that this is served accompanied by buttered asparagus. I've got some asparagus I cut and froze a while back. It's not gonna be, as perfect as, cooking it fresh, but it's what I have, and it'll make a great photo accompaniment for these pies once they're finished baking. So, I'm just going to do a quick clean, and by quick I mean I'm just going to shove a bunch of stuff in the sink and then get back to it later. See, do I need you anymore? No, I don't. I don't need you or anybody else. This is me without dinner. Okay, and how are we doing on time? I am curious. Okay, well, we're going a little bit over, but that's perfectly alright. These things do take time after all. And we'll probably just stop the stream after I make up the asparagus and get the first round of pies out of the oven. That way I'm not taking up your entire night. So, right, asparagus. Let's make the thing. And make enough for everyone. Maybe more than that. Let's do this. Bowl. Okay, fair. Because you're hungry? Oh, fair. Buttering up the asparagus might make it more amenable to posing pretty. There's a pandemic on, I don't have anywhere to be. Okay. Man. I still need to figure out what exactly I'm cooking this weekend, because I've got 3 recipes planned for my Patreon subscribers. Well, technically for the blog, but the Patreon subscribers get it first, because I am that behind in actually writing up the posts, because my blog posts tend to be kind of a literary analysis about food, so it takes a little while to write. Please be in here with asparagus. Yes! I have asparagus. It's in here. It is frozen. It might not be the prettiest things in the world, but it'll work. Let's see. Might just end up cooking. Oh, what the heck, I'll just cook up the whole thing. Alright. Just gonna preheat the skillet for 3 minutes. I'll just do a countdown on that. You know what? I want a cocktail. Even if that cocktail means just pouring liquor into a glass. I'm down for it. Because I don't have any simple syrup, but I do have peach tea. Peach tea? What band? Do I have any lemons? Because I don't want to use my lemon juice. I'll just use my lemon juice. Wait, I've got more lemon juice back here. Somewhere back here. Aha! Yes. Okay. So, I hear dry vermouth goes with hand pies. Yes. Asparagus seems a little less portable pairing the hand pies themselves. Yeah, that's... You're gonna have to ask Ed Greenwood about that. I swear, that's what the book says. I mean, I'll, hold on. Itchy nose. Let's see. A bite here means a sausage roll or a chicken and cheese pasty augmented by fresh asparagus with melted butter when in season, or fresh whole oysters. And oysters are expensive, yo, so that's not what the book says, but oysters are expensive, yo, so, at least in Atlanta they are. So, I'm not doing oysters, so I'm doing a quick asparagus. It's like, I believe you. I'm inviting you to critique the chef's choices. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit strange. I mean, I guess it goes with sauce. What am I kidding? They're both... Volo's weird. And I guess so is... What's his name? And if you don't believe me that Volo's weird, just play frickin' Baldur's Gate 3. Holy crap. So, let's get some ice. And some bourbon. Oh, and it looks like my pan is good and hot. So, since this is frozen, I'm just going to add this directly to the pan. To cook off the majority of that moisture. And to thaw a bit. Right, bourbon. Oh. Though I actually need to start making some simple syrups. I will admit part of it too, since we've been doing a deep clean of part of the house, as well as, what's it called? We're doing a bit of renovations too. We're redoing the bathroom, and after we redo the bathroom, we're going to be redoing the floors upstairs. This house was built in '69. It has carpet, but underneath that carpet, this was before they started using plywood as subflooring. So there's actually red oak hard floor as subflooring underneath the carpet. So we're going to be stripping up all the carpet and redoing the floors. But yeah, that's where my weekends have gone, have been basically going towards cleaning and renovating. Though, as far as what I'm cooking this weekend, I've got 2 recipes for the same book. The book's called The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Okay, that's good, but it needs just a touch of salt. Fun fact, salt can actually make things taste a wee bit sweeter. So, licorice let's see. Wikipedia says licorice all sorts are assorted licorice confectionery sold as a mixture made of licorice, sugar, coconut, aniseed jelly, fruit flavorings, and gelatin. First produced in Sheffield, England, but okay. That sounds... I'm not a huge fan of licorice, but I'll give it a try if I can find it. which it's very likely I'll be able to find it. Because we have Buford Highway Farmers Market, which has all sorts of fun stuff from other countries. Just doing a bit of browning here. Unfortunately, freezing it has made it a bit softer, so it's not as much of the nice crunch I usually like in my asparagus. But it's the asparagus I have on hand. This is, after all, not a recipe for asparagus. It is a recipe for cheesy hand pies that you can serve asparagus with. Alright. And I'm just gonna grab butter. And that vermouth I was talking about earlier. Don't worry, I didn't forget. So we are... Let's see. Amazon has them, though overpriced. Yeah, if you ever find yourself in the Atlanta area, check out Buford Highway Farmers Market. The international section is crazy because it's pretty much the whole damn store. Also, probably some of the best prices I've found on produce and spices. But yeah, also just Buford Highway in general is pretty cool because you can find pretty much most styles of international cuisine along it. Mostly different types of Asian cuisine and Central American cuisine. But it's super good. Just gonna add another pat of butter. Oh, i.e. Dragon Con, yeah. Hey, if you're someone who goes to Dragon Con, we are longtime attendees of Dragon Con. In fact, I write their press releases. So just gonna add another touch of salt. Bring that down to low. It's looking and smelling fantastic. There we go. Not that I'm heading south until your national xenophobia settles a bit. It's not as bad in certain areas as other. I mean, Atlanta's kind of a melting pot, and it's basically a giant blue splotch in a sea of... I don't want to say seas so much as a dusting of red. Basically, you can pretty much see the demographics of Georgia based off of the population and whether it's rural or urban. And Atlanta is very urban. And honestly, I mean, you're Canadian, no one's gonna notice. No one's gonna notice until you start spelling the words color and favorite. So, you're good. Okay. To be fair, it's the job of board officials to be jerks. Yep. Let's see. Board officials have a tendency to be jerks. Some administrators power those tendencies more than others. To be fair, it's the job of board officials to be jerks. Yeah. I mean, our country's not perfect. I mean, that's obvious. We elected Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him, but you know, we're trying. So we got my asparagus. Got 4 minutes left on the first batch of pies, and I've got a cocktail in my hand. Very much needed cocktail. Oh, by the way, since we are Munchies and Minis, my husband wants to show off the book nook that he recently 3D printed, painted, and added lighting to. So, while I'm waiting for those pies to come out, hey babe, why don't you come on in and take my microphone from me?
Hey guys, just thought I would show off my latest creation. Falls under the minis category here. A book nook. Hang on, gotta flip that around a little more. There we go. So this is a book nook based off the scene in The Hobbit. This is Bilbo first entering the Lonely Mountain and spying on Smaug's horde. So you see here, there's our tiny little Bilbo just coming through the doorway, and here is Smaug sleeping among his pile of gold. This is a fully 3D printed design. Well, minor exceptions. It's got a little wooden base that I put on here. The design comes from a user called O4Saken. That's O, the letter 4, Saken, S-A-K-E-N. This design is free on Thingiverse. They also have multiple other designs available on various platforms, some for sale, like a Balrog battle with Gandalf. But this is one of their free designs here. I printed this, I painted it, and here you can see the result, and I will go ahead and show you what it looks like with the lights on. So I wired this thing up with 5 different LEDs. There's LEDs in the sconces here. There's one in this chandelier hanging down. There is one way in the back at that, it's kind of a sconce point there. And then I've drilled in from the very top and put an LED just right there in the ceiling, shining straight down on this gold hoard. Catherine is going to turn the lights off for just a second because this thing really looks great in the dark. So the biggest thing, the thing I absolutely love the most about this build was the gold hoard. And what I found is some gold glitter glue. You can find it at your local craft store. It's just glue that's got a bunch of glitter in it. But it means that you can put this glitter in very easily. No cleanup, no fairy herpes, as we like to call glitter. Glitter gets everywhere. It never goes away. It's like herpes. But I was able to use just a simple, tiny paintbrush to paint it onto the gold hoard here, and it just, the sparkle from the glitter gives it off perfectly. The LEDs I got on Amazon. Just look up flickering 3mm flickering LEDs. I got 30 of them for $10. They already have a resistor on them. They can be wired up with just a simple 9-volt battery. That's all it is. Those LEDs wired in parallel, and it easily does 5. It could probably do a few more. It's just going to drain your battery faster. But in wiring it in parallel means you don't really have to worry about the voltage and stuff so much. Simple 9-volt battery. It'll run for hours and hours and hours. So yeah, that is our features on the minis at the moment. This is what I've been working on. I've actually been working on 2 of these. This is the first one completed. Another one that is going to be a gift to someone. Just finishing up the wiring on that. Once I finished it, I actually did just coat the outside with some simple faux leather, just so it's going to look a little nicer once it's in the book nook. You've also got this tiny little switch wired in as well. There are a lot of different ways you can figure out how to do a switch on this, but I bought these switches on Amazon. I can't quite remember the name of them, but they came in like a pack of 60 for $5. Super simple. That little switch, because you're not going to have this on all the time, but it gives you a nice easy access. So there's our mini section, and I'm going to pass this back over to Catherine to back to the Munchies.
All right. Well, that was pretty awesome. Yeah, he was so excited because apparently it started going viral on Reddit, so he was very happy with how that turned out. And apparently the guy who designed the Book Nook really loved it as well, and they're talking now. So awesome possum there. So yeah, I wasn't really quite at the level of goldenness that I wanted the pies at. So I put it at about another 5 minutes or so. We've got about 2 minutes left, but might as well take it out. Now, since I have a stupidly small oven, like stupidly small, of course the bottom of it kind of scorched a little bit, but these are, I want to say, pretty much done. It's nice and glossy. You could probably bake a little bit longer. No. But yeah, they are pretty much done. I just have to wait for them to cool for about 5 minutes before I serve them with some asparagus. And since you guys probably want to see what one looks like cut up, let me find the ugliest one. And did I already put away that knife? I already put away that knife. We'll use a butter knife instead. We'll cut up the ugliest one. And get a spatula out. I mean, looking at it, I kind of almost want to, I'll go with this one. It's pretty ugly. Kind of wish I put more shredded cheese on top of it. I'm not gonna lie. So I'll just write the recipe, and if you're taking notes, write the recipe to put an extra pinch of cheese on top. But that is our finished pasty. Nice melty cheddar cheese and apples and chicken inside. So, I would like to thank you for joining me for the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis. This week we did a recipe based off of Volo's Guide to Waterdeep. Shut up. Volo's Guide to Waterdeep. Has some Parmesan powder in the dough. That could be good. Yes, thank you so much for joining me. And last week we did a Shadowrun recipe for some soy-based currywurst. This upcoming week, I'm going to be putting it on a poll on my Patreon whether to do either a boar and chestnut soup from the Volo's Guide to the Dale Lands from the Forgotten Realms Dungeons and Dragons supplements, I would say from the 90s, or for another recipe from a Shadowrun computer game, Shadowrun Hong Kong, for some lumpia, which is a pork-based Vietnamese spring roll. If you happen to be on my Patreon, feel free to go and vote, and I'll be putting that poll up, I want to say tomorrow. Should be back on Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, and the last Wednesday of the month I will not be streaming, because I will be watching Audio Dungeon's series finale with everybody else who happens to be a fan of them. So if you happen to be a fan of Audio Dungeon, awesome. If you're not, go check them out. They are awesome and wonderful people. Anyway, thank you so much again for joining me. You have a wonderful rest of your night, and as always, stay safe, stay sane, and stay you. This has been the Glutton and Skeek Presents Munchies and Minis. I hope you all have a good night.